This is a comic review of Tales of Suspense, issue 40. Now, this is the second issue of Iron Man. This is a very bad copy, very tatty copy. Lots of writing all over it, obviously half price as well, 8 pennies. Tales of Suspense, you've got MC, so that's obviously Marvel Comics. You've got, obviously there, 40, 9 pennies. Obviously this is a British issue, and End. And got all those various stamps. And you've got Gargantus, and you really hardly can tell that he's got a new sort of yellow outfit at this point. However, go on to the next page, and this one's Vista. You quite often never have mention about Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics didn't really seem to get much of a mention, and so you would have Vista and other loads of Manvis comes to mind. And this was April 1963, copyrighted 1962. So, which is odd. I just wonder if so that was copyrighted of Iron Man 1962. Was he created in 1962 then? I guess so. However, Iron Man, you got here Stan Lee, script was by R. Burns, art by J. Kirby, inking Don Heck, and lettering by Duffy. And I'm not certain if there's Duffy, D-U-F-F-I. It's hard to tell. It sort of goes slightly a bit unusual there. Now you've got Iron Man demonstrating to the army obviously this weapon, a genius, obviously Stark, and you've got him. Then he goes to a circus with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend turns around at that point saying, well, why is he in such dull, grey armour? He's horrible, frightening, and all that sort of stuff. And he, of course, change. Oh, how dreadful looking he is. And everyone sees everyone going away. Looks like a creature in one of those science fiction films. And that shows in many ways what this initial Iron Man stories were. They were still monster books, even though they were, obviously, was a superhero character. There was still that monster element. Thor was probably not, but Spider-Man, even Spider-Man, you could say, was a sort of like left over that monster fantasy period sort of stories that they did. Anyway, got the good old story there. They always put those for the postal reasons. And then the girlfriend suggests, why not a golden look, gold metal instead of that grey dull? You become a modern knight in shining armour. Oh, hang on, most of the shining armour is always in grey. Well, greyish, silverish. Maybe they could have gone for silver, but again, that would have made him looking white. It would have been, they wouldn't have had the colour scheme. So obviously, yellow is nice and bright and cheerful, and comes off much better on the covers. Maybe stands out. And you got Granville. Haven't you heard? Granville shut down. Obviously, Marion isn't on the plane. Obviously, he's discussing this, and then we're on to the story. Now he goes straight under, but he goes into this place that's been controlled by Gargantus. Iron Man's strident voice, he obviously uses this quite often in these early stories. I love the fact that you've got the early stories. They never ever use these sort of things later. You'd have a sort of voice booming over the town. I'm not certain he did that too often afterwards, but they often had this sort of inventive sort of thing in the early days, and then they would forget quite a lot of these things. However, this is very like a monster story. You've got quite a lot of Zemo, all those sort of things. They were quite loads. They must have done it stacks of times, where you had this sort of creature comes in and he controls the town by hypnosis or whatever. There would be some reason that all the town would be obeying this person, this creature from outer space. And it's a similar sort of thing. So it's a monster story. And of course, we learn a little bit about, and then we're on to the next story. There is a really quite basic story, but thoroughly enjoyable Iron Man classic of that period, early period. Of course, you can get it in the Epic collections, Marvel Epic, Iron Man. I don't know, I think they're bringing out a reprint of the Iron Man, the Golden Avenger. And that was an absolutely brilliant Epic collection with lots of those early stories. And I loved all those early stories. They just don't do that sort of thing anymore. And so those Epics are great, or omnibus editions, of course. But you've got like the Melter, the Pharaoh story, you've got the Cleopatra one, you've got loads of other Crimson Dynamite. So much invention. Great little stories. That quirkiness that I think is gone and lost. Sad. So, obviously, people like the long-running, massive epic stories now. I love those 10-page stories that where it was a very basic story, but it told a real good tale very quickly, succinctly, and that was it. Anyway, onto this. Tell her succinctly. So you got work of art: Stanley, Larry Lieber, Sol Brodsky, and V. Berg. Actually, it's nice that they put the lettering, because I think on the first one, yes, they always did. Of course, lettering was Duffy, but they don't mention who the colouring was by. I don't. Maybe the artist did the colouring. I don't know. Larry Lieber. Script and art was Larry Lieber, but they don't mention the colour. To me, colour's very important. The colourist is, nowadays you have a massive section about the colourist. Here, obviously, clearly not. He longed for a masterpiece, then he got what he wanted. The Fool! So you got one of these great little short stories here, and Larry Lieber. Again, maybe they should. I always think they should bring an omnibus edition out of all the these like short stories, because obviously you've got the Ditko one and you've got the Kirby one, but I think Don Heck, Dick Ayer one, and also others. Bit hard to think, but it would be nice to have a sort of book come out with all these short stories in. I just think they're just great stories. This one is obviously a little bit of an unusual story. Again, told in 5 pages, very quickly, very brilliant. Again, you've got that another story there, got all the lovely adverts. And then you've got this one. I love this one. This is Prophet of Doom. And this is, of course, a Ditko, S. Ditko. He always put S. Ditko, not Steve Ditko, S. Ditko. Stanley, and then it was going upwards. Very odd. So you got the S. Ditko story, Prophet of Doom. Unfortunately, of course, it doesn't put who the letterer was and colourist and all those sort of things. But this, of course, again, information is lost probably to history. And you got this character, obviously, from his future. Obviously, he's a future character, and it's a good yarn. And he's got, of course, the standard adverts there. And by this point, of course, there's still no though occasionally you'd see at the bottom, they would mention what's coming up and those sort of things. But in this, they don't seem to be. Did they do that in the Iron Man? No, it just says the end. That was it. So no checklist or anything like that, obviously, at this point. But I must admit, that was the thing I really loved, the checklist. When the checklist came in, it was great just to see the stories that, you think, oh, I must go and buy that, or I must buy that one, tick that off. So that's Tales of Suspense. I love these sort of things. And I've had this issue for ages and ages. Bought it very cheap years and years ago. Sadly, I didn't buy issue 39. Now, that would have been probably only about £1 or something extra than this at that point. So, can't buy everything, can you? So, Tales of Suspense, issue 40. Thoroughly enjoyable issues. Like I say, worth checking out in Epics or Omnibus, or buy the original, of course.